missions to go in and find the enemy and recon them, or were your missions, did you have some other missions?
Well, if you had a spike mission.
Spike means what?
Tactical. In other words, you're going to engage the enemy. A lot of times then you would take a sniper with you. And then you would go in and you would look for the enemy, and when you found them, you'd do two things. One, you'd set up automatic ambushes on his trails and that, and put trip wires so they would set it off themselves. And the other one would be you would sit up and just watch an area, and when they moved into that area, you start picking them off. And that was a spike mission. Of course, a recon mission is different. Area recon mission, you're looking for something. They ain't sure what it is. You're out there looking. You might have a wiretap, but they don't know where the wire is. So you would go in and you would work the area over till you found the wires. Then you would tap their wires, and you would record everything that's being said on the wire as they talk to each other. And then you'd come out. And if you had a point recon, they'll say, okay, you got a trail river watch. You'd go down and you'd set up near there. And that's when it gets a little hairy, because I've watched up the battalion walk past me. And you're sitting
an enemy battalion?
Enemy battalion.
On a river watch, you said you call
river,
it?
they'll cross the river, they'll get on a trail. You're trying to find out where they're coming from, where are they going. So you'll watch the river as they cross the river. It's usually they'll find it was an underground bridge, maybe about 2 feet underwater. And you wouldn't see it from the air and that. And they'd walk right across that bridge, come up onto the trail, and then right down the trail. And some trails are from here to there, not a blade of grass on it. And you would watch a battalion just walk right past you. And you'd record.
How close were they?
Sometimes from me to you.
Which is about 6 feet.
Yeah. And you sit there and you try to get their pictures and take it back with you.
With the missions you were given, I'm assuming you saw combat on almost every mission.
I do have the Purple Heart.
You want to talk about the instance where you got the Purple Heart?
Yeah, wasn't much. We got surrounded and we had a firefight. He fired. B-40 rocket hit in the tree next to me and drove shrapnel and wood into my ears. Another time I took shrapnel up the side. Another time I got shot in the hand. It's various things happen. It's combat. You don't know when it, how. They fight like they do over in Iraq and that. We fought on their terms.
Was it larger units that you were normally? I mean, you were only a few people. You were always outnumbered.
We had what is called. I was in what's called a prairie fire AO. If I got so outnumbered and they found me, and I seen that it was nothing left to do, I'd call a prairie fire. Meant every jet, anything in the air belonged to me. I would have sorties sitting up above me, 10, 15 sorties ready to roll in, and just be calling them in as fast as I could, and just put napalm and that around you. Sometimes when you feel the heat of the napalm, it's better because the enemy has got to back off.
So you were in situations where you had to call them in like that?
Oh yeah. And
that was because you were so surrounded, so outnumbered that there was nothing else.
Once they figured out where you were, and if you used just a KY38 radio or that, 27 or that, and you were calling, they would sit there with a little AM FM radio. Ah, we got him. Another one would sit there. Ah, we got him.
They triangulate.
And they've got you. And you better be running.
You know, when you were talking about having all of that air cover and being able to use that to protect yourself, that brings to mind a movie called Platoon. And I recall in that movie the commander hollering, saying broken arrow, which means bring the stuff down and bring it out. They're so far into my position, just bring it down on my position at this point.
And that's when you call, we had prairie fire.
That was the same thing as broken arrow in the movie Platoon. Yep. And you just took
and if you were up in the DMZ, it was called nickel steel. You called it nickel steel. And you had everything.
You had to take as much cover as you could. I mean,
you laid next to trees and that, try to where you're firing underneath them, because you got stuff coming right over the top of you. And they get that close. One of their missions were, when they made contact with the Americans and that, is to get right within the American perimeter. So you gotta call in on yourself, like Colonel Carpenter did with the 101st. He called the napalm right in on his troops. You know, nothing left to do. At that point, you figure it's over with. You're trying to save as many as you can, get as many out as you can alive, but get the enemy off you because they're wiping you out.
The types of missions you were on, a lot of work done at night?
Most of the work was done at night. A lot of times in the daytime you moved, but mostly at night you set up and watched because that's when the enemy moved. And you wanted to know where they were moving at. If I was going to set up an automatic ambush, I would sit there the night before and just watch and see where the enemy is moving and which way they're moving. Because I wanted to get the most effect of my ambush, so I wanted to put my trip at the end to where they're moving in and I can get the most blast in my area. And that's what you would do. You sit and watch them and use whatever tactics they're using against them. Because they use whatever tactics you're using against you.
How did you deal? I can't imagine being close enough, as you described being close to the enemy and watching the enemy. How did you deal with fear?
It's too late to be scared. It's the same as a firefight. I was never scared during the firefight. And I always seemed to know where the weakest point of the firefight was coming from, and that's where we tried to get out. But you just had to understand, and you watch, and an AK-47 has a distinctly sharp crack when it's firing at you, and you had to realize where they were and where you could escape, where you could overrun a few of them to get running again, to get away from them. Because once you get away from them, if you had the claymores, you could throw a claymore down, run out your wire, and as they just blast it, and they'll put them down. They'll hide. When they're hiding, that gives you a little more time to book.
You didn't have the night vision capabilities that they do now?
No.
So you had to just get up close?
You had to get close.
See them?
If you wanted to get a column, you had to get close. And a lot of times, if you're in a real heavy canopy, you can't really see them anyway. All you can do is hear the movement and that going past you. And you're just kind of counting the elements. Okay, there's a platoon. Okay, that'll be a platoon. That'll be a platoon. You know, because you can't see them. They're right there, but you can't see them because the canopy is so thick. If you got a real nice moonlight night and an opening someplace, then you can sit there and watch that opening and get a pretty good count on who's moving by you and where they're going, what direction they're going. Because that's what you're doing. You're looking at a portion of a trail here. Some other team will find a portion of the trail here, another team there, and you'll actually route them on into South Vietnam from the north.
And that's what the military leaders then base their major strategies on, from what the people like you out in the bush were telling them.
And the hairy one is if you got to sit along the Ho Chi Minh.
The Ho Chi Minh Trail. Now that was a major trail from North Vietnam to South Vietnam, where the supplies from the North Vietnamese came down, and the Chinese came down south. And it wasn't like a big major highway trail, was it? Or was it?
They could drive trucks and everything on it. We'd blow it up, and the next thing you know, they'd have a Caterpillar out there filling it in again. And guess what? The Caterpillars were all ours, that they had taken from Quezon and all the other places. They were actually our Caterpillars. But they would fill it in. They got them running, they would fill them in. And the North Vietnamese were pretty smart. I had a Hmong team, and we're sitting on the side of the hill. We're watching them. They come running out with the mortar, set up their mortar, and they're firing off the other direction. We're sitting there, what in the heck's this? What are they firing at? What are they firing at? Once they got their distance, they turned the damn mortar around. Guess who they were firing at? They were putting it right on us, and we were running. I mean, they were good. There was nothing wrong with their army.
Now you mentioned the Hmong, and I believe, were they a Cambodian particular? Were they from Cambodia? And they were
Laos.
Laos, and they were friendly to the Americans all along.
Yeah. In fact, what I used a lot of times, when we came from Laos, our unit came from Laos to Vietnam. They brought a battalion with them, a nuns, And Mr. Lee, which was their battalion commander, when he got wounded, well, they broke that battalion up because they didn't have enough people left. So they brought in Mountain Yards, company of Mountain Yards, and they brought in a company of Vietnamese. And then they had a company of Huns. And then Mr. Lee, when I took over as a weapons platoon leader, which was the heavy weapons, I took care of all camp security, all my weapons on our outpost and everything. I had him as my chief interpreter. Of course, I didn't realize that when you go out and talk with Mr. Lee and that he's Laotian royalty. They were actually in the higher ups at one time, but he was great. You know, he sat there and I was training like a fool. You know, I take over this mortar platoon and everything, this company mortars and everything, battalion mortars and that. So I'm taking them out here to a training area, and I'm training these Vietnamese, well, these Hmons. I'm training them how to fire these weapons. And we say, okay, we got a target up here on the side of a hill. Well, I said, anybody can hit the target in one round, I'll buy that gun crew a case of beer. They never used the sights or anything else, just threw the gun up, boom, boom, right on the target. I'm going, what in the world? And Mr. Lee and I, of course, we took a 60, we set up and we fired, hit our target.
The 60 is a mortar.
It's smarter, the smaller mortar, the 81s were the bigger ones we had there. I didn't bring any 4.2s up there. I sat there and then I went back and I took the folder out on all of them. These people had been firing mortars. I had what we call Papa Sand. He cleaned the area where I had all my radios and that. He kept it clean and that. He was the grandfather to almost all these people. And he was a mortar man. and every mortar man down the line were all mortar men. They'd worked with the French. They'd worked with the Vietnamese. They worked with Americans. They worked with everybody. And I'm going to teach them something. But I did teach them one thing. To take the sight off when you set the base of your weapon. That's the only thing I taught them because they could split your bubble on it. That's the only thing I taught them. I sat there, you talk about feeling like a fool. But these people were good. I really like my Vietnamese and that.
Well, we have a large population of Hmons in Wisconsin. I don't know what the last year you served in Vietnam was. What was your last
71.
71, and we got out in 70.
Actually, 73, 75.
70, okay. And you had to have some feelings about the people that were left behind that had helped people like you.
You wonder what happened to them. It's just, you know that being with our unit to begin with, their life expectancy once the Viet Cong got them or the NVA got them, they were dead. They would kill them. Either we got them out or they ain't going to keep them people alive. We caused too much havoc to them, killed too many of their people.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Green Berets were not especially well loved by the North Vietnamese or BC.
I had a $500 award on me only. That was a cheap one.
How did you find out that the enemy had a $500 reward on you?
Everyone who does knew. They would announce it over the radio. They would tell you sometimes where you were going. And you didn't even know. But there was a lot of leaks. Ours was what you call a top secret unit. And we still knew we had about 20%.
20% of your top secret information got out.
We knew that at least 20% of the people that were in our camp were the enemy.
Why were you so top secret?
Because we weren't supposed to be there.
And
McNamara said we weren't supposed to be in Cambodia, Laos, North Vietnam. The McNamara line was one of the hell on earth for the American troops over in Vietnam.
Have you read any of the books that McNamara has written, or do you have any feelings
I wouldn't read anything that he wrote. It'd be nothing but a lie. All he's trying to do is cover the mistakes he made.